Hi there. Welcome to Piece of Work, the podcast. I'm Danielle Tantone. I'm a nurse, author, coach, and survivor. I love inspiring people to live their best life, reach for those big dreams, and find joy even in the pain. As I wrote my memoir over so many years, trying to make sense of a story where I was way too often the bad guy instead of the hero, I came to understand that we are all a piece of work, but we're also a work in progress. And even in our messiness, we are a work of art too, all at the very same time. In fact, we are all beautifully unique pieces of one masterpiece, waves in the same ocean. This podcast will explore the stories and struggles that make us human, the miracles that surround us, and all the ways we work to make sense of it all. Welcome to Piece of Work, the podcast. Welcome back to Piece of Work. Today, I have a very special guest. One of the most special guests in my life, and that is Camryn, my daughter.
Hi guys, I'm Camryn.
And I thought that it sort of just worked out. She was with me today. We had a couple of appointments, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? There's actually nobody who would be more interesting than Camryn to talk to my listeners. All 5 of you. But I wanted to talk about a couple things, mostly just the experience of being a teenager and growing up in the 2020s, which is a very unique and interesting time for us all, but I'm sure it must be uniquely interesting as a teenager. And then, of course, growing up in my house and all of that.
Okay.
But where should we start? We kind of brainstormed a little bit. First of all, just to give you a little background, Camryn is 17. She just finished her junior year of high school, so she's going into her senior year. She is not your average child. She has always been very intuitive and just like a sponge, the way she looks at the world and picks things up. She is very smart, but also just a very cool person. But,
well, thank you.
But she's number 2 in her class at a very large high school in Mesa. She is in all AP classes. She works very hard, but she's just, a lot of things just come naturally to her too. She is just a very smart and scholarly young lady. She is in the process of applying to colleges. And so I wanted to talk about kind of all that process, friendships and relationships during COVID, being a child of divorced parents, with a mixed families. So there's so much stuff to talk about.
Okay, pick one of those.
I know. Yeah, where should we start?
Up to you. I don't know.
And she always gets upset with me about how I can go from one thing to the next so easily. So I want to give her time. I guess we can start with, you just came back from Girls State.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. That was such an awesome experience. So for people who don't know, it's basically like an all-encompassing, like hands-on government experience of our Arizona state government, but it occurs in all 50 states across the nation. So every state has a chapter of Girls State. And basically what happens is the top 2 girls are selected from the top of their class at each Arizona school, and they're sent to Girls State. And there you get elected to governmental positions in the Arizona government. You participate in things that the government would do. You carry out your duties as an elected officer, and you overall just get an awesome, hands-on, like I said, experience of government. So it was really awesome. And also I made so many friends that are interested in the same things as me and want to go similar places. So it was really cool overall.
Very cool. I was going to try to take notes, and I realized I can't focus on what I want to ask you and listen to you and take notes. So nice idea, but it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you just came back. I just picked you up. It was at U of A, which happens to be my alma mater, which was really cool for me just to pick you up there. And I only spent about a half an hour on the campus. Did you get to see much of the campus?
We were basically visiting the same 4 buildings throughout the week, but I mean the campus is gorgeous. It's really pretty up there. So.
Was that a surprise to you?
Yeah, it definitely felt like more of a campus feel than I expected. But
yeah, compared to ASU.
Yeah.
Because ASU is more part of the city, it's like the buildings.
Which I know a lot of people like, but that's personally not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, you want to have more of the feel. What feel are you looking for when you go to college? What?
I mean, honestly, I really like the Ivy League, Gothic, close campus feeling. So I would hope to find that wherever I end up going to school.
Cool. I didn't mean to go off the subject of
You're
Girls'
totally
Day.
good.
So what did you said you met some amazing friends, and what do you think you'll take with you from that experience?
Actually, something crazy is that I've always had like a little bit of an issue public speaking. It just like, even if I'm not technically scared, like my stomach will turn over and stuff, you know? And also like, I thought going into it that I'd be at a disadvantage because I'm like more introverted. But once I was there, it was just actually really easy to publicly speak. And like I did my campaign speech and didn't have like any nerves in front of 200 something girls. And we also did campaigning and networking before for the position. So we had like a meet the candidates, like meet and greet type of thing. And that was like surprisingly easy too. And really fun actually to like talk to people about what they're running for and what I'm running for and why and stuff like that. So I think I grew a lot as a person, and I think I'll carry that with me. And also I think I'll keep some of the friendships because these girls were really cool. So I hope we can meet up.
That's neat. Yeah, it must be neat to be together with other girls who have similar interests and similar intellectual, like, interests and things like that.
But at the same time, we had so many differences. Like, it was crazy to hear all the different schools and like different opportunities that people are given that are so different from mine. And then also we varied a lot politically, like opinions. So something that was really cool about that camp was during lunch, we would spend like the first 20 minutes debating, maybe about abortion or something, like that, where we're all very divisive on it. And then the last half of the lunch, we'd be like looking at memes or something. So it was really cool to have that connection with those girls.
It's super heartwarming and awesome for me to hear that you were able to have those discussions and not necessarily agree, but yet still be friends and still continue the discussion, because I think that's what's lacking the most in our society, is that people are so divided on so many different issues, and they refuse to talk to each other, and they refuse to see or even try to understand, because it's so wrong. I can't even believe you could think that, and I can't even possibly be friends with somebody who thinks that. Whatever it is, it's both sides, it's every issue. So
it was definitely like enlightening to hear girls that I respected have opposite opinions, and then look at their opinions as someone who I respect and consider it that way.
Very wise. I'm very, very happy to hear that. I love that. That's probably like a huge thing. If you can take that with you through life and teach that to the people around you, I think that's an amazing thing. So then you were elected Chief Justice.
Yes.
And how did that feel?
It felt really cool. Honestly, I was kind of scared I wouldn't even get a justice position at all, because there's 3 out of 200 girls there. But then I got elected to Chief Justice, so got the most votes, which felt really cool because I didn't expect that at all.
And you want to go into law?
Yes.
This is sort of a relatively new idea in the last year or so, I'd say, that you've been talking about it.
Right. So I think I've always been like English and writing has always been one of my strengths and something I really love to do. So I wanted to go into like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be like an author, but then I realized that like those jobs are like more volatile, and obviously you're an author, so it does work. It works out.
Well, you can be an author even if you're a lawyer, even if you're whatever.
But it's not exactly like a solid career, and it also has.
It's not easy to just get a job as a writer.
It also doesn't have like immediate impacts. Like, yes, writing a book is extremely powerful and will affect many people, but it's not directly changing anything that you can see. So obviously I knew about law, but when I considered it more deeply, it was like a way to synthesize writing skills and argumentation to actually impact like real life events and real people. So I think it's just a brilliant idea. But
where did you come from? You're so smart. It's like just amazing to me that you're like the product of my body and your dad. And, God and whatever other influences you have. But yeah, it's just, you're so smart, so wise. Very cool. Yeah, I think that that's a really smart idea, to have a specific career vocation that you're training for in college, because, I mean, you can get a degree in pretty much anything.
Right.
And it's still good to have a degree, and you're going to learn stuff in college. But I think, having a path that has a nice high paying job attached to it, where you can make an impact, is great. And not that I'm discounting being an author or being a writer, but you're going to have that. You don't necessarily need to major in that. And you can major in English and still go into law school too.
That's kind of the plan.
You can always go back and get an MFA if you want one, a Master of Fine Arts, and write books and write novels or write poems or whatever. And you can keep doing that no matter what you do as your job.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing I've shown is that you can do multiple things. Hopefully not quite as many.
Because I feel like before I had like singled out law, I knew I wanted to go to college because I just love to learn. So that was an experience that I really wanted. But I was concerned that I would get a degree that I couldn't use and then like end up with nothing. So definitely law is more secure and it has like a straight path forward. So that's definitely something that's good about it.
Very, very cool. And your aunt, my sister, is a lawyer,
yes,
so you had
she's my
that
inspiration.
Influence. Are there any other influences, either someone you know or someone you don't know that kind of impacted you and caused you to think of this?
Honestly, I would say literature was a big impact. Like reading To Kill a Mockingbird, I read that pretty young, and it definitely like set me off about like injustice and stuff. So that's something I would work on as a lawyer. And then, I mean, other books, like any book or movie that has a trial in it is always so captivating, which I think a lot of people agree with. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like it spoke to me specifically because it was people using like their deeper thoughts to actually have a real impact, like I said before. So I think I love
that idea. So using your writing and your literary ability for an impact.
For something real.
Yeah. For something tangible. Very cool. That's sort of why I majored in journalism when I majored in journalism in college. Same thing was like to use I was always a good writer and I always was good at English, but I was like, that seemed like a very specific way to like impact the world.
But you warned me off of journalism, so.
Well, I didn't mean to warn you off of it. It's changed a lot over the years.
It has,
and I think even if you end up still, the cool thing about law school is it's a graduate degree. So you could major in journalism if you wanted to. What I liked about it taught me a very concise style of writing. But if you're more interested in the English literature and like really studying the literature, I really wasn't. I loved like writing and stuff, but I did not like studying literature at all. Like I had to do a somewhat of it because I was in the higher level English classes, but it was not my thing.
Not your thing. Okay.
So I think if it interests you and you could even major in chemistry and still go to law school. There's not really.
I guess so. Yeah.
Not that I think you would, or that's definitely, although this kid got like 110% in AP chemistry last year. You're like, she has a photographic memory, I think, or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. Or you're just.
Well, thanks, I guess.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, what was your score on the ACT?
Oh, I got a perfect score on the ACT.
Got to brag a little bit. That's pretty awesome. I can't even.
I was extremely excited when I found out.
And besides your natural smarts and your natural abilities, what do you think helped you get there to that score?
Definitely. So I'm working with this program called Class 101, and my advisor is Sean Coates, and they are extremely helpful just for the college process in general, which we can talk more about that later. But specifically through that organization, I guess, they provided an 8-week course that was ACT practice. So it was 2 hours every week for 8 weeks. And we did each 2 of those 8 sessions would be for each subject. So we would run through tips and different like tricks and tips for that. And then we would do a practice test for each of those sections. And I feel like that definitely like made me understand what the test was looking for, even if it wasn't technically studying, like figuring out what they wanted to see and how to pick out the right answers was really helpful.
You must have paid attention and it must have worked. So good job. So the other thing kind of that I want to segue to, I do want to talk a little bit more about Class 101 and just our decision in the college. Actually, why don't we talk about that now? You, on our way over here, you read me a poem that you wrote about college admissions. Yeah, don't be nervous. It was an amazing poem, and I think the way you capture just the emotion of things, I think has a very universal reach, even though this is specifically about college admissions. But.
All right. So here is the poem. It's titled College Admissions. Okay. What they don't tell you is that you will edit and revise yourself with efficient brutality. You will shatter yourself on the floor until you crumble in shards of ceramic, like a pink piggy bank which you hope conceals your golden ticket. You will pilfer the dirt for small pieces of what you once called a person, and arrange them in a more flattering mosaic on the cement. And maybe the art is better for being broken. And maybe revision is like the circle of life, unscrupulous and unavoidable. And maybe a Frankenstein of a portrait is more attractive than a breathing, beating whole one. But they don't tell you how you will scavenge. They don't tell you how you will core yourself like a peach, fingers finding purchase in your own identity and bruising as they tunnel inward. There must be something worth something in there. You will be the vulture picking through your own innards, hunting for the heart. Real people not admissible, they tell you in fine print. No mushy soft parts that don't hold up to probing. No inconvenient inner core to bite around. What is left, you ask? And they don't tell you. Thank you.
It'd be so beautiful, Camryn. I love the line, there must be something worth something in there. I think maybe that could be a title. Like if there might be another title in there. Your words, some of your words are just amazing. I love that. There must be something worth something in there.
Yeah, that's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that what you captured, obviously you're writing about the college admission process, but it could be about searching for a job. It could be about social media marketing as an entrepreneur. It could be about auditioning as an actor. It could be about trying to get an agent or a publisher as a writer. That's what you feel like. It's like you're trying to find, what do they want to see? What do they want to know?
Well, and especially for college admissions, it's hard because a lot of the time, like, struggles that you've gone through are very impactful in your like essays and stuff. So you're almost like looking for things that have gone wrong. Like me and my dad were joking like, oh, if only he would just die, then I'd have something to write about in my essay. Like, so it's like a really weird situation because you're actually looking for like hard things in your life.
Yeah,
so
and when you've had sort of a nice, easy life.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Oh, but you can find some hard things.
No, yeah.
But that's interesting. Yeah. And you definitely do have a lot of complications in your life. I mean, you are, like I said, mentioned earlier, you're the daughter of, parents who got divorced when you were like, how old were you? I think you were in kindergarten. Oh, you were younger. I think you were, like in kindergarten when we got divorced or like very young and, going back and forth between two homes. And thankfully,
honestly, I feel like it's worked out really well.
Well, I was going to say,
both my families.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. You do have, we are very blessed that your dad and I are very amicable and you have two loving families. Both of us have remarried.
Exactly.
And, we certainly have our issues. Mike and I talk about our issues all the time.
It's also like having double the family. So I really don't count it as a disadvantage. Really.
Sometimes Aria, your little sister, might, is jealous that you get like two Christmases, two Thanksgivings, like double the birthday presents. So they're as much as they're, but I think that at the same time, there's two different energies in the houses. There's two different sets of rules.
Difficult to balance sometimes.
There's, a mom who, and a stepdad who's very, not volatile, but just passionate and up and down emotionally, very emotional. We'll say it that way. And then, a dad and a stepmom who are more even keeled and just more polite to each other. The way they communicate.
It's a very different family dynamic. I think both are good. It's just hard sometimes to switch back and forth. But honestly, I think I'm better for having that. So
that's cool. And I know you're also very political and able to to make it sound very good. Like what? I meant that as a compliment. You're very. I know that it's hard for you sometimes. I mean, we just recently had a fight about it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. But yes, I think that you are lucky that you have lots of people that love you and you do have a couple of different influences and, you also have a variety of influences politically, religiously, from our extended family.
Double the extended family. Too.
Yes. So that's,
It really is awesome to have a large circle. So I do appreciate that.
You are very loved and you have a lot of support. It's just, I know it's a lot of noise, especially if you're like a highly sensitive person and you're just being inundated by a lot of people's energies and opinions. All right. So all of that, what about one thing I wanted to circle back to is, you finished junior high at a very small, high academic school, a special kind of a specialty school. It's part of the public school system, but you wore uniforms. It was a very small school. You had like 30 people in your class.
I think it was 80.
Okay. So it's super small. And that happened, you finished 8th grade right in the middle of COVID.
Yes, that was definitely probably the hardest part in my life so far was just transitioning from that school where I knew everyone, felt really connected, felt loved by everyone there. And then not even really getting introduced to my new school, just getting thrust halfway through the year into partially online classes with half the amount of kids it should have been. It was just really difficult. I mean, I feel like going into that big school after a small school would have been hard anyways, just because of the differing like social aspects, especially because we're not wearing uniforms. It would have been hard no matter what, but COVID definitely made that way worse. It was like impossible to connect. I had like 3 friends that year. It was a really rough year. But now I feel like after COVID has passed and it's like back to normal, like I'm definitely more connected, definitely have a good circle of friends and stuff like that. It was just rough.
What COVID. Made the difference besides obviously not wearing masks and being able to, was it joining the clubs or was it
Yes, joining clubs definitely helped. Basically, like a good portion of my good friends are all in the clubs that I'm in. So I'm in AP Council. Next year I'll be the president. I'm in NHS. I was a junior officer this year. Next year I'll be secretary. And then I'm also part of Link Crew, which is freshman orientation. And I think through those clubs, you just connect with people who are like you and you spend a lot of time together. So it's easy to form friendships and you're kind of like forced to interact. Unlike in some classes, you can just sit there quietly, but in clubs, you're working together. So it makes better connections, I feel like.
Yeah, that makes me happy. I remember freshman year, you came to me and you're like, I'm just kind of bored. Like I'm not very challenged and I'm not like connecting. I don't really know how to meet people. And I was like, oh baby, you're like only getting a fraction of the high school experience right now, you know?
Well, I mean, I didn't go to my first football game until junior year. So honestly, junior year feels like,
maybe not.
Either way, junior year feels like the first year I've actually had of high school. So I'm really sad that my experience got cut short. But also the friends I've made now are worth it. So,
and that kind of, hopefully you still have a whole nother year. Hopefully that knowing that you can really just enjoy every minute because it does go by so fast. What's so crazy is as fast as it goes by, like the next 30 years also goes by really fast. Like I cannot believe sometimes how vividly I remember my high school experience, mostly the emotions of it. Like I remember when I turned 17, I remember what I was doing and, you know, so it's so interesting to see your kids going through that. And yet I feel like the experience of being a teenager today is so different, even besides COVID, just with social media. I mean, we didn't even have a phone. We didn't have a phone that you carried. Like if you wanted to talk to your friend or your boyfriend, you'd have to call their home phone. Their mom might pick up. You'd have to talk to their mom. And like,
it's definitely like fundamentally different from, I mean, obviously I didn't live in that time, but I can tell that social media has definitely changed everything. I mean, it has good things too. Like with the friends I just met at Girls State, we are still talking in the group chat. We were sending memes on Instagram, you know, like we can stay connected with each other, which is wonderful. But also it definitely has some really bad parts. Like I just deleted TikTok because I literally spent all my time on it and I couldn't do anything else because it's actually addicting.
It is.
It's built to be addicting, which is so bad for our development and stuff. As far as like dating goes, it's definitely weird because the main way that you're connecting is over the phone, which isn't a good way to establish a relationship. And so that's definitely harder. Friendships you still make them in person. I feel like it has boosted friendships because like I said, you can connect when you're far away, as long as you still make them in person. So
that's cool. Yeah. I remember several years ago when you were just like a young teenager, I think it was in junior high, we kind of cautioned you about how social media, you can be almost like too intimate too quickly, like with conversations, because it's like, there's a barrier. Like you're not, it's something I couldn't possibly say in words to your face. It's easy to write it
Well, that's true for dating, but I will also say that's very true for politics. And that is like undeniably one of the reasons that our politics are so controversial right now is because you're only getting these extremist one-sided views from social media that people would never actually stick up for in person.
Absolutely.
And it alienates the other side from being able to understand where they're coming from and understanding the foundations of their viewpoints, you know?
So true. I had a couple of conversations like early on during COVID and during just the last couple of elections where because I'm I've been not a member of both political parties in my life. I've gone back and forth. I'm sort of very middle. I can see both sides more than the average person. And I have friends and family on the far left, far right, both of them. And I remember posting just a few things. I don't really do a lot of politics because I've kind of learned, and I don't have a real strong opinion. That's not fair to say. I don't have strong opinions, but it's just not what I choose to focus on my social media mostly. But I remember posting just something kind of neutral or general that I thought was, and like people having an argument like underneath my post in the comments. And I'm like, like, and like a nasty argument, like saying things like about David, you blah, 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 like just back and forth. And I'm like, hey, friend who I love. Exactly. That is my cousin you're talking to. Like, watch it. Like you would not come over to my house and have dinner at my table and speak to my guest like that. These are all guests on my post here. These are friends and family members that I love. And so that really made me mad. I agree with you that people will say things and you get like only just a fraction like of the story. You don't.
Well, even with the girls that I met at Girls Date, like there was one girl who, well, there were two girls who were, one was very far right, one was very far left. And watching them go at each other, they were using mostly stereotypes of each group and like basing their arguments on extreme people and extreme viewpoints, which like don't ever really happen in the real world. So it's just, social media just makes it so easy to stereotype and so easy to say that, oh, look at this horrible thing that a person said, they must all suck. But really, we're just normal people who have our own opinions and have to sort it out.
And we're all kind of a mess. Like people do say stupid things.
Exactly.
And people do.
But that shouldn't define what you think about an entire group of people or an entire opinion, you know?
Yeah. And it's so interesting. We talked about this. Like, I don't even have to name the groups or the issues, but like I talked about this on the way here. Like, you know, one party thinks that this thing is wrong and therefore the government should get involved and make it illegal. But this other thing we should have total freedom on. Right. And then the other group thinks the exact opposite about those same two things. Like they think that one, the government definitely needs to get involved because that's murder. But this one, no, we want that one to be, we want to have free choice for that one. And I'm not even stating the issues or which party, like I'm honestly, I can see both sides of both of them. But when you look at those, like from an outside, if we could all come out of our personal opinions for a second and just realize, like, it's the same. Like, it's so crazy that when it's something we think is important, we want the government to like, to make sure it's upheld. And when we think it's something that we want to have as a right that cannot be taken away, like,
we're both arguing for rights.
Which is just rights and government and control. Exactly. But like for different things. And it's the same. And I wish there was a way to get people to see. We're never going to come to an agreement per se, because if you feel like this thing is murder and this thing should be a freedom, like it's just fundamentally like different. You can't like their minds aren't changing. Right. But if we could take a step back and just even see what I just said, like that would be a huge step in the right direction. That the thing that you think you want to have as a right is something that somebody else thinks is murder in the same way you think that other thing is murder.
So we need to
wait a second. Like there's, you know, maybe we're both a little right. Maybe we're both a little wrong. Maybe there's something in the middle that. And
well, I think just understanding that the other side isn't an enemy. They're not all evil. Like, I feel like it's really easy with social media to just like get so mad at the other side that you stop listening to their opinion as an opinion and start listening to it as like animosity.
Yeah. And you don't even hear, you stop listening. Any reason. You stop listening, period. That's actually the key. Yeah. So true. I actually posted, it's actually the last of my book, but I also posted it on my blog. Sorry, I stepped away from the microphone. This just reminds me of something that I posted on my blog, but then I haven't shared yet. I posted it a couple weeks ago, but then we were on vacation and everything. But it's this, and it's on my blog is danielletantone.com. It's called, what's the post called? It's the most recent blog post, and it has this drawing that I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a famous like Psych 101 thing. I think it's called My Mother-in-Law and My Fiance or something like that.
Yeah. It's like
you look at this drawing. It's a black and white drawing, and I don't know, we can't really scroll in, so I'm don't know if you can even see it on there, but you can always look it up. It's my mother-in-law and my fiance, I believe. I will find out for sure what it's called. But I want to pull up the website too, because I do have it on there. So it's this drawing where if you look at it, you know, at first glance, and there's a whole bunch of psychological studies on what it means, which you see first, what that means. But, you know, if you look at it one way, it looks like a young woman. You're looking at her profile and her beautiful chin. And then if you look at it like another way, it's this old lady with a grimace and totally different picture. And so I recently put on my blog, it's called Adjusting Our Lens. And it's an excerpt from the last chapter of my book. And I'll read it real quick because I think that it's important. My fascination with this illustration has nothing to do with the deep psychological meaning of what you see first, a young woman or an old woman. My interest lies in the fact that it really is possible to adjust your eyes to see the other side. It's hard to do. You have to step back, blur your eyes, look away for a moment, shift your perspective. And when you do, you see that there is more than one right way to look at the same set of black and white facts. As you change your lens, the young woman's chiseled jawline becomes the old woman's gnarly nose. The choker on her slender neck becomes the old woman's thin grimace. Her ear becomes the old woman's eye, etc. It may even be hard to go back to your old way of seeing it once you've seen the new image. Though it seems impossible, sometimes both ways of looking at something are right, even if they seem diametrically opposed to one another. And sometimes they're both wrong. Usually they're both a little bit of both, and the path is in the middle. The answer is finding a common ground, seeking to understand, and loving even when we don't feel loving. We are all waves in the same ocean, treating people with kindness and respect, listening more than we speak, seeking first to understand. This isn't just rainbows and unicorns. Forgiving ourselves and others when we make mistakes, treating people how they want to be treated, caring how we make them feel, and loving them as we love ourselves. This is the basis of the teachings of Jesus and every other coach or teacher I've learned from. But long before I knew about any of that, this is how I was raised. And it goes on a little bit, but
yeah, that's so true. I love the metaphor. It's perfect.
Yeah, the message of my book, and it makes me so proud that that's something that you got out of this experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see how we're doing on time. We still have a little bit of time. So, what is there anything that we kind of touched on that you want to talk a little more about, or anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about?
I don't
Anything
know.
you want to ask me now that you got a microphone in front of me? And
Crazy. I guess I would ask you, I've always just wondered this, which job was your favorite at the time? Which was the most fun?
Well, before I answer that, I just have to say, the other day, Camryn looked at me and said, I think being a nurse is your best job, Mom. And I was like,
it fits you really well.
So sweet. And why, just because you said because I'm caring. And
yeah, you're such a good caregiver, and you're also you're knowledgeable, and you're able to be direct about different things. So when you're helping with my own issues, you always make it very clear what's happening and stuff. So I think it's a good job for you.
Well, I appreciate that. So which job was the best when I was doing it?
Right.
Okay, so every single job I've had, and I've had a huge assortment of different jobs. My first day of work is the best day ever.
Okay.
And then my last day of work is usually pretty good too. Sometimes everything in between is a little bit mixed. But that said, it's hard to really pick one because I've had so many jobs that are so cool. And even when I look back, I'm like, well, why didn't I stick with that?
Right. Yes.
From being a reporter with the Associated Press, living in Concord, New Hampshire in 1996, and seeing Air Force One land and and seeing Clinton walk off of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't there to write any story. I was just there just in case something interesting happened. But I had a press pass on. It was so cool to be standing there.
Cool.
That was super cool. But then the day-to-day reality of that job, I looked at my boss who was 30 years older than me, and I'm like, do I really want to be where he is in 30 years?
True.
And no, the answer was absolutely not. But if I could go back to my younger self, I'd say that no, but there is value. There are other things you can accomplish by staying in this job.
Right.
But what always has happened to me is that I get to a point where I just can't stay. It's I'm just done. And from that first job, that was my first job out of college. So my first real career job. It was a combination of things. My parents were going through a divorce, so I'm all alone across the country. New Hampshire is about
It was
as
just
far
a hard situation.
Yeah, it's about as far away from Arizona in every way. And I had a boyfriend who I kind of missed, and even though we had kind of broken up, I still it was just I was all alone in this place that was very different politically from where I grew up, very different climate than where I grew up.
Yeah.
You think you want to go somewhere cold or, rainy.
Right.
And I was the same way. I cannot wait to get out of this sunny, boring Arizona desert. I can't wait to go somewhere else. And I realized living there, I kind of grew up in paradise.
I know I feel like definitely is something that I don't appreciate enough.
Yeah.
But it is nice weather here.
Going away is the best way to appreciate it. So I don't blame you for that at all. So yeah, that job was amazing. A couple of years later, I worked for L'Oreal in New York City, L'Oreal Paris.
When you told me that, I freaked out.
And that was neat too. I mean, they had a store where you could buy all the L'Oreal products. And I was just, my job itself was not the greatest, but again, if I had stuck with it, I mean, I could be,
it's always the kicker.
20 years later, I could be, who knows, doing what in that.
Right.
I mean, I spoke fluent French. I mean, there was certainly a lot of opportunity with that company. And that's why I took the job in the first place. But nothing was ever quick enough for me.
Right.
And that's the interesting thing is that I would go back and tell my 17, 18-year-old self is that be a little bit patient, take a breath. There is time for everything. They always tell you life is short and sometimes it is. And sometimes it's cut way too short and, we don't have any control over that. So yes, you want to enjoy every moment and, pack it all in. But life is also long. And there's time for things. And sometimes it's okay to just take a breath and just be in the discomfort, be in the, messy middle. And that's one thing I've struggled with. And that's probably the main reason I've had so many different careers.
Right.
But now that I'm here, I enjoyed being a realtor. I still love aspects of real estate. I love being an author, and I hope to be a more successful author and a best-selling author and a world-class author right now. I mean, people who read my book do enjoy it. Piece of work. I always have to give the plug,
Yes,
this is
of course.
Half the reason for this podcast is just so that so people will discover my book. People who've read it really say that it's meaningful and it's impactful and it's inspirational. So beyond the story of, the bad stuff that's in there, I've learned some good lessons. And so I love coaching other people. I love helping other people write. So those are things that I'm kind of working on.
Well, that's good. Your best job is right now.
Yeah. And podcasting is pretty fun too. and then
nerve-wracking.
And then there's my job as a labor and delivery nurse, which is also there are days, it is a hard job. It is not what you might think, where you're just sitting there coaching. Yay, you can do it. There's so much
that
more,
baby. Let's go.
So much more to it. And it's a beautiful and an amazing job. The good and the bad and the hard. Working nights is hard, and working when you're an entrepreneurial kind of person and you're like a free spirit, it's very hard to work within that 12-hour shifts. We're supposed to have 15-minute breaks and 30-minute lunches. Half the time we don't even take a break. You have to think about when you can even go to the bathroom. It's versus my natural. So it's hard, but I do love it. So yeah, it's hard to pick one and that's part of why I have 5 jobs right now, because
exactly.
I can't pick one. I love
working good so far.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't burn out soon.
Yeah, it's a little bit much, but I will say that having your name in print, both when I was
that's pretty cool.
With the AP, it was cool because I worked for the Associated Press and they syndicated things out to all the newspapers. So at the office, at the bureau, we called it, they would have people that would cut all the articles out of every newspaper in the region, because we served the whole region of New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. And so it was neat to see your name on all these different newspapers.
That is really cool.
And yeah, so I sort of kicked myself, why didn't you keep doing that? You could have been an international correspondent.
Would have been pretty cool, yeah.
Could have been Pulitzer Prize winner.
You could have been pretty much anything. So
could have been. And then the other thing is, I still can. I had this conversation with Mikey. I'm almost 50, and that's a little bit, that sounds really old. And, but theoretically, I still have another half of my life to go. I think I'll live till 100. So
okay,
and
I'm ready.
And maybe I'm not constrained by the same things that constrained me when I was younger. I'm kind of constrained by some new things, like being old, like
having a 6-year-old,
having kids, finances, just not being as youthful like that. That is something that I am feeling more and more. Like, really? So you, like, I am going back to U of A to pick you up last week. It was like, I do wish I could go back and be me at the younger age and make some different choices.
But you can't go back.
Try some different things.
You can't go back.
Because that's the reality is, like, honestly, there's very, very few things. There are a few things, but there's very few things that I truly regret and I truly would not
change.
Do.
Right.
But it would be certainly interesting. Like, it'd be cool to be able to explore different options. Like, what would have happened if I did this?
Like, see the end results of each of those paths. Yeah, that would be cool.
Did that happen in that? But wasn't there a book that did that? The Midnight Library. Did they do that in that book, or was that something else? I don't think I
ever read that one.
Okay,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, that might be an interesting book to explore. Because I think that. But that's the thing. You can't do that in life. You can't go back. You can only go forward.
Right. Exactly.
And you just gotta make the choices you make. And I think the world is your oyster, my sweetie. And I'm so proud of you, and really just so in awe of you that you are so wise at a young age. And just the best advice I would give you is just take a breath and try to keep your mind open, because sometimes the things that you think, oh, whatever, I'm not doing this, like, you realize, okay, actually, I was wrong about that.
Yep. Maybe I won't end up a lawyer. It's okay.
Well, and that's not necessarily, I think that you'd be a wonderful lawyer. And I think there's also a possibility that you'll practice law for a couple of years, and then you might, and you'll probably be an author, and you'll probably, there's not,
I hope so.
You're able to do both and.
Okay.
Life is about both and.
Very true.
Whatever. What else? Final thoughts.
I don't know.
Class 101. Okay. We have 2 minutes left. Class 101 is the company that we work with.
Yes.
Definitely look them up. We are in Mesa, Arizona, so
they have chapters. I think.
Yeah, they have chapters. Places, but our advisor is amazing.
We love her.
Yes. Love her. Yes. And Girl State is put out by the auxiliary of the
American Legion Auxiliary. So they're wives of and daughters of veterans.
Yeah. So that's kind of a neat connection. Anyway, I thank you for listening to us, and thank you for being willing to be here. It really is special. As I kind of joke about, having teenagers is sometimes harder than having toddlers. I tell that to my new parents at work. Just having you willing to sit here and talk to me on my podcast for an hour is super, super neat. I love you. You're one of my favorite people in the world.
Oh.
And my book, Piece of Work, a memoir, touches on a lot of the themes. Like, pretty much everyone who's read it said that one thing as a parent is how much you love your kids. And that is absolutely true. It's got a lot of themes, love addiction, faith journey. We're all a piece of work, a work in progress, and a work of art. You can follow or like or review the podcast, listen anywhere podcasts are played. All my socials are at Danielle Tantone, and my website is danielletantone.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.